I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? Did you have one, Priscilla? You said there was something.
No, just a correction. We did that.
Okay. Anyone have any adjustments to the agenda?
Molly, I have one.
Jason?
Molly, I have one if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Hi, everybody. I'd like to put into executive session follow-up from April, follow-up on guidance counselors' allegations of continuing racial incidents at the high school.
Molly, it's Andy.
Yes, Andy.
I don't know if that would fall under the parameters of executive session.
Okay.
My only concern. I don't know what it, as far as what would be a hindrance to public in that conversation.
Okay. I'm sorry, Jason.
But I admit I'm not an expert on the whole thing, so.
Jason, I heard executive session and then I lost you. Can you repeat again what you wanted to talk about?
So we've asked since the April meeting to follow, and we've asked to put this on the agenda every meeting since to follow up on guidance counselors' allegations of continuing racial incidents at the high school.
So I guess my question is, are you asking on follow up as far as any outcomes that administration has taken against or towards the school counselor, or just on the incident of harassment at allegations at the high school? Because I believe Mr. Broadley is going to address that in his comments today.
My only concern is that he addressed it, Mr. Brother addressed it last month, and I don't think we feel that this has been resolved as far as follow-up with the guidance counselor.
So then it's a personnel issues that you're speaking about.
Yeah, we've asked to put it on the agenda several times, and has been here. As a board, we don't know why.
I'm going to challenge Jason's request. I'm going to tell you why. Obviously, how the school deals with issues that may or may not involve racism or other student to student or student to faculty or faculty to faculty matters, that's policy. And I'm going to give you two reasons. One is how we address these sort of issues is a policy matter. It's not an executive session discussion matter. Secondly, I have, shall we say, concerns that if this is in any way viewed as a situation that's supposed to have an outcome of a gotcha against a member of this staff, that puts this board on very thin ice. And I would advise the board not to go there. Administration has received instruction about this situation, and I think that we need to wait for administration to come back with an outcome. And I totally agree with Jason Terry that we have not seen that response from administration yet. In fact, that's something I was going to address here a little bit later. So obviously, it's the board chair's call. Subject to the board overruling the chair, of course, but it's the board chair's call as to whether we go in or not. But I believe that under these circumstances, that it would be an ill-advised thing to do.
Thank you, David. I did a little homework today trying to, make sure I was following all the right rules, because there are certain reasons why you go into executive session, and I didn't know if I didn't know if I could with this, and after doing some reading, it didn't appear to me that I should either. So thank you for your advice. I do know that probably, Jason, we're not gonna get a great answer on this tonight because Mr. Broadley has had to go take care of his mother who has gotten injured, and he's in a car headed to her now, so he is not able to attend the meeting tonight. But I do know that, you know, it's been brought up to him several times, and I don't know what he has done, but I'm sure that we can have him get us that information. Anyone else? Go ahead, Brenda. I'm just sorry, Deb.
I'm sorry, you letting Brenda go first? That's the case.
I was looking at you and calling you Brenda.
I simply just want to say that I don't want these kinds of things to languish, and I don't agree with going into executive session on an issue that was stated by a staff member in a public meeting. Therefore, I think it needs to be addressed because it sits in the back of at least some directors' minds, if not some public minds, that issue has been brought up but not resolved. And now that it's in the open, it needs to be dealt with. But unfortunately, what I see sometimes is that objects and items are brought up that just languish until death, and then they never got addressed in a meeting when they are brought up in a public meeting. And that's it. Thank you.
And I think that's what Jason is trying to get at right now. And I don't know if there's much we can do without John here, but Andy, do you have some guidance?
Sorry. I mean, I can definitely go through Mr. Broadley's slides that he provided to the board and try and take some questions that I can bring back to him that we can get some answers for the next board meeting based on those slides. I don't know if that, I mean, I know that the diversity committee had asked me to read a statement that they had written, so I was going to do that today, and also, just note some of the work that we are trying to do from SU level to support the high school, just all around regarding all issues with students. So.
Oh, okay. So
I saw
we're
Jason
still
had his hand
not-
up, Molly, at one point.
Jason, do you still have an adjustment to the agenda? That's what we're on right now.
Yes, I have one other one. I asked to have on the agenda for this meeting, and I think I'm fall under new business to have Mr. Broadley and Mr. Haas go from meeting to meeting so we can review for completeness. So stuff like this does not happen going forward. Because if we wait until July to address this, now it'll be another month and it'll just be not resolved again. So I think as maybe we could encourage a policy, or I don't know how you would word it, but I'd prefer a punch list. Then once it's completed, just check it off and move forward.
So the first part of your conversation was we couldn't hear you, but so under new business, you would like to have. Did anybody? I didn't understand what you said.
Mr. Broadley and Mr. Haas have sorry. I'd like them to have a punch list, complete things and bring it to us every meeting.
And when you say complete things, you're talking about things that are on our agenda, like this particular item about the guidance counselor, where we really haven't seen a completion of what she made some strong allegations, and we want to make sure as a board that our school is safe.
Or
No,
it could
I
be
understand.
anything. It could be, it could be anything, whatever we, make an action item for the high school to complete. I'd feel better knowing that it was complete instead of having a new meeting the next month and talking about new stuff without completing the old stuff. It kind of, seems backwards.
All right, so we're gonna adjust the
Madam
agenda.
Chair, can I comment?
Let me just get this adjustment done. And then if you got another adjustment,
No, it's a comment. I want you to be careful. Can I comment?
go ahead.
I applaud Jason for asking for exec session if it's a personnel issue or we're discussing somebody's the way they're particularly handling things. But I think we want to be careful because the handling in a school is an administrative thing. So I would caution the chair to be careful where
Yeah,
we put that on.
We're not
the-
putting
on
an
the agenda.
executive session.
Okay.
What
Then
we're
we
gonna
need to be
do,
careful and not discuss it as a personnel issue.
so we are going to put 8A to just discuss our principal and superintendent on how we could get some sort of a punch list of completed things that we talk about for the next meeting. We're just gonna have a few minutes to just talk about that tonight. That's 8A. Anybody else? Adjustments, what we're on. Okay, communication, public comments. Do we have any? Ricky, do we got anything?
Appear to be,
Okay.
hands up.
Review and approve board minutes for May 23rd.
Why was the communications from Andy, the letter? I think?
Yeah, down here.
Yeah, I think that's on the
Okay.
agenda.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any adjustments on May 23rd? Priscilla, go ahead.
Yes, under policy, and where it discusses the following policies we posted on May 18th, F1 was not one of those and was not included there. That should not be there. We actually have that voted on under 7.
Okay.
So that needs to be removed.
Anyone else?
My name is missing from attendance. I was here.
So we need to add Tanya Noyes to attendance. Anyone else? I'd like a motion to approve the minutes as corrected.
So moved.
Seconded.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the minutes with the corrections made, to take off policy F1 and to add Tanya Noyes as attending. Deb, how do you vote?
Aye.
Jason?
Aye.
Priscilla?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. We're down to reports, and we'd like to have the superintendent.
And thank you, Molly. So I've been asked by the Diversity and Equity Committee to read a letter that was written. Members, the lead members weren't able to make tonight's meeting, but it is a committee that's been, as far as I know, since coming to WNSU 4 years ago, has been in existence. I don't know if it existed prior to that, but so it's been there for the 4 years. I've been a member when I'm able to make it, for the 4 years. So dear Bellows Falls Union High School School Board members, we, the WNESU Diversity and Equity Committee, DEC, are committed to implementing the standards set forth by the
Thank you.
Vermont Principal Association and the Vermont Department of Ed. Should be Agency of Ed, so I apologize. We intend to provide an education that prepares our students to become global citizens who contribute to a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect, regardless of race, class, gender, religion, sexual orientation, or disability. We know this means taking on challenging issues that are complex in order to ensure issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion are addressed in meaningful ways for all. On March 14th, Grace Juarez, a junior at Bellows Falls Union High School, attended a school board meeting and made a proposal to fly the Black Lives Matter flag at BFUHS. The WNESU Diversity and Equity Committee would like this letter to serve as an official statement of support for Grace's proposal. Grace stated that racism is an issue in Bellows Falls and that flying the flag would support the BIBOC, Black, Indigenous, and People of Color citizens in our community. She cited a personal example of racist language used within her earshot in the BFUHS cafeteria on the very day of her proposal. In a restorative circle just last week, a student shared with the DEC member that racist comments happen all the time, often in friend groups, joking. This particular student of color said they just swear at them and they usually stop. The Black Lives Matter movement affirms the value of Black lives in response to systematic racism that impacts every institution in the United States. The BLM flag symbolizes a commitment to creating a just, equitable, and empathetic world, especially for our students of color. In Vermont schools, the data is clear. Students of color are disproportionately suspended, have lower graduation rates, and are subjected to racist remarks on a regular basis. The Bellows Falls community is not immune. Regardless of the decision the board makes about the BLM flag, the Diversity and Equity Committee is grateful to Grace Juarez for her proposal. She brought a very difficult issue to the forefront. And our hope is that it serves as an impetus for our school community to engage in a dialogue that will leave us with a greater understanding of racial inequity in Vermont and our country as a whole. Fortunately, the WNESU and the Vermont Agency of Education have committed to implementing restorative practices, as it offers our school communities a unique opportunity to create safe space where students can dig deeply into issues. Students learn that skills necessary to engage in dialogue where they can respectfully disagree and center each other's humanity. Additionally, the Diversity and Equity Committee and many teachers throughout the WNESU work diligently to bridge divides and address these and other issues through content and social emotional curriculum. All of us, all staff, all faculty, all of our boards, and all of our students would benefit greatly from anti-bias and anti-racism training, as well as well-oiled restorative practice machine. These are when the hard conversations take place. This is when growth happens. With the support of leadership in our district and expertise of the Greater Falls Community Justice Center, we intend to host courageous conversations, opportunities to come together in safe places, to have honest discussions, hear one another's voices, and come to common understanding. We look forward to the invitations for you to join these opportunities led by trained facilitators that will employ the restorative practices so that the community can see the benefits firsthand. Thank you for your time and consideration. With good intent and sincerity, the WNESU Equity Committee. Just to follow up, I'd just like to share with the board and community, the reason I'm not there in person is I'm actually in Killington, Vermont at what is called the BEST Institute. And it's a 4-day conference put on by the Vermont Agency of Education for multi-tiered systems of support. And the purpose is to bring teams together to discuss these type of issues and how we support students, how do we change our instructional practices. And when we wrote the grant to bring staff here, we used the lens of restorative practices and social emotional learning. So we actually have 3 buildings represented here, up here at the conference. Mr. Broadley had a commitment with his family, so he wasn't able to bring someone from his building. But it's exactly what we're trying to do at the SU level, is to address not just the high school, but systemically what we're doing and how we're addressing issues throughout our entire SU. It's why we're looking to add a restorative practice person devoted to the high school. We're looking at trying to couple that position with a diversity and equity coordinator, which is actually required by the state of Vermont now. So we're looking to bring on someone who has that strength and can bring us that support. And to be very frankly, answer the questions that the high school board is asking, to be able to provide data right away to the high school, but any board when they're asking. So we are looking at addressing the issues. We've had some meetings with the Greater Falls Community Justice and looking at how we can do it. I know, as I said earlier, Mr. Broadley was looking to, if he were here today, we had a presentation around harassment and looking back 5 years. And as I said, I will do my best to go through the slides and take down any notes and try and get those answers to board members. And if I can get them ahead of time, we'll make sure we get them to you before the next meeting, because I know it would be a while away. So that is all I have right now, Molly.
Andy, can you tell me who's on the diversity committee?
So it ranges. There's some standard, or not standard, but some folks that are on there on a continuous basis. So Stuart Strothman is co-chair along with Carrie Kennedy. Laura Tabachnik is on the committee. Andrea Carlson, Thurston Koch, Dina Weiss Tisman, myself, Deb Whitkiss, Carrie Newton, Stephanie Fuller, Olivia Clark she is leaving us and going to Wyndham Southeast on July 1st. And then there's a few other members who come and go. So I do know that when this letter was being shared, not everyone could be in attendance while it was being put on. It was shared with members of the committee. And many actually emailed after you guys got it and said, please add my name to it. It's a committee that I'd like to see grow. I think it's important. It provides voice for our teachers, but also listens to our students and helps provide our student voices, which I think is probably, if you had to ask me, one of the most important things we do is fostering our student voice. And I think we need to encourage it even more from our students, and not just at the high school level, but across the entire SU.
Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Molly. This is a highly politicized letter that we've received from your committee, Andy, and I would like to respond to it. I'm going to take note of the fact that on April 11, Andrea Carlson did appear before this board, and I have condensed her remarks. Andrea said, I have worked here for 20 years, and during that time it has been reported to me each year that racial incidents happen regularly at BFUHS. On the 14th of April, 3 days later, an agenda item was forwarded for consideration, which was new business. Follow up on Andrea Carlson's allegations of racial harassment at the high school. This did not appear on the agenda of April 25th. And on May 17, a new agenda item was forwarded for consideration, and that item was steps taken to address allegations of inappropriate behavior towards minority members of the BFUHS community. Regrettably, that did not make it on the agenda of May 23rd. So I'm making an assumption here, and my assumption is that this letter is the administration's response to this request. So I have a question for the committee, and I will frame it for you here. At the November 10 WNESU meeting, the high school board chair walked out of the room while Curtis Reed of the Partnership for Fairness and Diversity was addressing the board. And when he finished, she walked back in again. And on November 17, I sent a request for a high school agenda item called Discussion of possible censure of board chair, which was also not acted on. I'm wondering, the WNESU Diversity and Equity Committee would like to have a courageous and honest conversation, to use their language, about how we respond to opinions we may not agree with, particularly when they have potential implications for matters of race. As I said before, I think this is a highly charged letter from your committee, Andy, and I'm asking your committee if they want to actually discuss some of the things which both have gone on at BFUHS and the things which have been alleged to go on at BFUHS. Thank you. It's a feel good. I'm glad you wrote it. I think Grace Warriors did a great job. But if your committee is serious about doing the work, let's see some of these issues start to be addressed. April, May, June, almost July. Let's get with it. Thank you.
Go ahead. Jim.
Molly, if I may.
Go ahead.
So, David, I don't disagree with you on many of your points. I would like to point out that this is not my committee. I am a member of the committee. I don't chair the committee. Because of my schedule, I don't make a lot of the committee meetings. I agreed with many parts of the letter because I believe in student voice, and I believe we need to allow all of our students an opportunity to speak. And that, to me, is what democracy is, and have difficult conversations. I will say, and I've said it, one of the reasons why I asked John Ungelleider to come and speak with the board was exactly to address some of those issues, to bring them to explain to the board some of the things we were doing and some of the conversations behind the scenes. I had asked Mr. Broadley to get a committee together of students and to discuss all of these issues. I've asked Mr. Broadley numerous times since Ms. Juarez did her presentation to provide that information to the board. I don't have access to that information, but I've asked Mr. Broadley to do it. I believe Mr. Broadley is trying to bring some information to the board at this time. I can go back to the committee and I can bring your suggestion that they come and speak directly with the board. I'm sure that if their schedules, can align, that they would probably be very happy to, but I can't speak for the committee.
Whose committee is it, Andy?
It was a committee that was, as I said, I don't know the origins of the beginning of it, but it was a committee that was put out there when I came on as Director of Student Services. I was told that there was a Diversity and Equity Committee. I belonged to it at a former district in Vermont, and so I said I would be a part of it because I believe in the diversity and equity and the work that they do.
Who is this committee responsible to, Andy?
Again, David, if they're supposed to be responsible if I'm supposed to be responsible for them, I guess, but as I said, I don't know who set it up. I don't know what the governance is of that committee. It was not something that I put together, nor do I haven't had oversight of it.
Thank you, Molly.
Molly, it's been at least 6 years that committee's been on board.
Go ahead, June.
I have a couple of comments, I guess. One question, does this committee keep minutes so we can go back and read minutes and stuff? That's my first question. And the second, this letter sounds like a whole lot of what Andrea had brought up in her letter that she read to us. And this letter coming from a committee would have meant a whole lot more to me if the letter was signed by the members. I know for a fact that the school board, before I got here, had at least 8 letters that were not signed, and they were not read because they were not signed. So I guess that's my first question was,
Yep.
do they take minutes?
So in response to both of those, June, very good points. Yes, they do take minutes, and they are kept. And the letter is signed, because I would not read a letter if it wasn't signed. And the letter that I've had forwarded to you does list those members, as I believe, as I just stated, that the letter had been shared with members of the committee. Not all had had a chance to speak on it. It was then,
That's
because I knew I needed to get it out to you guys ahead of time. It was sent out. It's signed by Stuart, Carrie, Laura, Andrea, Thurston, Dina, myself, Deb, and Carrie Newton. And since then, other members of the committee have said, please sign my name to it. So I agree with you. I would not bring a letter to the board that was anonymous.
I didn't take those as signatures because they were typed, so.
Sorry,
That's
because
where-
it was a
where
Word
my
document. It was a Word document that was
understanding-
being shared.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
But I could share those emails where people were agreeing to be a part of it if you'd like.
No, that's fine.
Anyone else got any other comments? So I have a couple comments. I've heard probably since November 10th about restorative practices. And it feels like that's all we talk about is restorative practices. And even though I've done exactly what everybody felt I needed to do to save my face, so November 10th is never going to go away from my history. But I did it, and I owned it, and I stood in front of you all and did what I felt was the right thing at the next meeting, and then had a meeting with that gentleman. And because I didn't agree with what he was saying, I didn't say anything mean, I didn't do anything, but I did remove myself, so that was the wrong move. So what I'm really struggling right now is that we've spent 33 minutes almost, other than pledging allegiance to the flag and 2 minutes on an agenda, on really what we're getting at is a guidance counselor who came into a meeting and had some really, really strong words to say to some really good people, and has never come back to this board and had anything to say to the public or to this board about what she said. She chose the wrong words, maybe. I chose the wrong thing in a lot of people's eyes, getting up and removing myself from a place where I didn't believe what the man was saying. But I was held accountable for that. And I think what most of us as board members are struggling with is she has not been accountable for what she did at the next meeting. And that, I believe, is what we're struggling with. This letter has that person right behind it. It's very obvious it does. I'm not telling you I disagree with this letter, but what I'm telling you is I'm held accountable every day because I made a move that somebody didn't like, but she has not been held accountable to us as board members, respecting us as board members and the people that she offended a lot. And those were good men in this building. They were good men. They were business owners. They were fire chiefs. They were fathers. They were good people. And they got accused of something wrong. So I've said my 2 cents. Andy, your hand's up.
Thank you, Molly. I guess we're diving a little bit into the supervision evaluation piece. I do understand and respect your concern and duly noted about a public apology. My concern is that, the difficulty is when we do take action and address an issue with a staff member, we can't always discuss the outcomes and whatnot. The other piece is, and where just to say I struggle personally, is I would never want to sequester or try to influence any staff member from coming forward to speak during public comment Because I think that just like student voice, teacher voice needs to be heard, and they need to do so without fear of retribution. And if any staff member, if they want to come and say something negative about me, and they're fearful that I'm going to have retribution for that, they're not going to come forward. And so we don't have an open and transparent community. We have one that then sits behind the scenes. And so that's my concern. I understand exactly what you're asking for, Molly, and fully respect it. I respect that you addressed the issue with Mr. Reed and took ownership for that, and I'm appreciative of it. But that is my concern. Just thinking of supervision of any staff member, if we're demanding types of apologies and whatnot, does that put us in a situation of fear of retribution? So that's my only concern on that.
I'm sorry, I don't know the lady's name above Fact
Deb
TV.
Witickus.
I'm sorry, who is it?
Deb, isn't it? It's another Deb, I believe.
You have your hand up.
Yeah, pardon me. I just wanted to say, I'm not sure if I can even speak. Can I speak? Because I'm on the equity. Oh, okay, thank you. Yeah, I have been on the equity committee for a few years. It was, in fact, started by Chris Pratt and Len Carey. And I came into this personally because I believe that we can do this as, I think I've heard in one of the school board meetings, we can do this in a very different way rather than, shutting each other down or, leaning into the political nature, that we can do this in a way where we're talking neighbors to neighbors. And I just respect you so much for, holding yourself accountable. I try to do it myself and I have to do it all the time. And on the equity committee, we have courageous conversations because we have points of disagreement. And I would have to say that over time, people have grown in their understanding that this type of work does take courage, and it takes us all holding ourselves accountable for our actions. And it also takes faith that we can learn and we can grow together. And the only other thing I would like to add is that I have enjoyed about being on this committee as a community organization is that we're not just talking about race or gender or, sexual orientation. We're also talking about there's a large percentage of students that are stuck in generational poverty, and they are a marginalized group, and they happen to be majority white students. And we want to be able to make sure that they also feel comfortable and empowered and have a voice at school. So I think that, I think this is an amazing community that is primed to be able to sit down and talk neighbor to neighbor and have tough conversations. And I believe all of our hearts are in the right place. And that's all I want to say. If I would try to take some questions, I can't speak for everyone on the committee. And I think that I personally have advocated for us to really take an approach that gets the politics out of the personal, because we're all living in the same community, sending our kids, and we all deeply care about them. Thank you.
Deb, your hand is up.
I'll put it down.
No, Deb Wright.
I think I wasn't the first one. I think maybe Jason or someone else. I'd like to be polite and give the right time, but since you're listening to me, I'll just say what I think, which is that I do not believe that personnel should not, that's my concern, and as business owner, that they should not come directly to the board. They have a chain of command to deal with, to address their concerns. That's my biggest issue with feeling in some ways, and I am on the VLCT Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, so everyone's aware where I'm coming from here, that shaming people into doing what you want is not the way to go. And that's inappropriate. And when you're inside of the system, which this person was, there were other ways for her to address her concerns that were not in front of the board. And I do not believe, based upon the fact that we haven't the information, that didn't happen, but that is the way it should go. If you work in the system, you deal with the system. We can't walk into the building and speak to her directly about our concerns as board members. We have to go through her managers, her administration. We do that. That is the proper place to do that. But that means that also the other side matters too, that there are proper chain of command ways to address issues. And now we are left with this hanging out thing that leaves us all incomplete. And we need to address that. And now moving it through this letter, this highly politically charged letter, as David has stated, is another way to push the board. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Jason, you had your hand up. Do you have something?
I do. I have pretty bad internet. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
I just wanted to, I'm hearing you guys and I just wanted to make sure that somebody had mentioned with Andrea's comments, if they're accurate or not. And I think her comments were very important and we need to investigate them. And that's all I simply been asking is if it's factual, what are we doing about it? If it's not factual, what are we doing about integrity? That's it. That's simple. Thank you.
Thank you.
A follow-on question, please.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I want to state clearly and unequivocally that I do not believe that faculty are an excluded class when it comes to public comment. I think they have just as much right to come into this room and speak to us as any other member of the public. I will note that Andrea Carlson lives in Westminster, is a neighbor. I think that we also need to bear in mind at all times that her comments are protected by statute against retaliation on the part of her employers. And in this particular case, her employers are a food chain that runs right up to this board. So I think we need to be extremely careful about singling particular members of staff out when we don't think that we like what we're hearing from them. Secondly, I want to reiterate, Jason Terry just nailed it there. It's not what Andrea Carlson said, it's how this administration, because that is the chain of command, has addressed those concerns. And it's been 3 months since we heard those concerns without any apparent follow-up from the administration. And I think the time has come that we have that follow-up.
Andy, do you have anything else?
No, I duly noted that what the board is looking for, and I will make sure that we get as best answers we can by July to let you know.
Thank you. That's all you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So, the last time we met, I handed out a sheet, a one-page sheet, which showed the budget and expenditures by what they call objects, salaries, benefits, and other cost data. This particular one is by function, and that's how we kind of track our expenditures. And I will say, for fiscal year 22 budget actual data. It's the third column or fourth column over to the left. And that is as of maybe the 26th, 24th, June 24th. So we've not completed everything as yet. Now, I just want to tell you, in the accounting for your expenditures, we deal with, it's very important to get the account structure, which is a 20-digit account. And every digit has to be an exact match. Because if it's not, and this is where you're at, and I'll just be very blunt with you. If you go down towards the bottom where it says food service, that's function 3100, you'll see there a $221,000 amount. Andy, I'm sorry you don't have this. I'll try to get with it, but I just finished it this afternoon. So I apologize. But so, and if you look at the 221 and you say, well, wait a minute, the budget for next year is 58,000. What's going on? Well, I haven't tracked it down yet, but I suspect that somewhere there was expenses that were just put the wrong account number to. And I got to tell you, this is where we're 14 foot down in the hole right now. And if you can, visually think about 14 feet down and trying to climb out, you're going to struggle. And I think that's where we're at, and we just have to make sure each entity has the right charges as well as each account. And we're working furiously on trying to put this together and try to get there. Right now, the other twist that happens, and right, wrong, or indifferent, is the SU picks up some monies that belong to the high school that are not SU expenditures. And I'll phrase this. So substitutes, there's $54,000 of substitute monies that we've got to charge back. And I've done it. I've included here $140,000 of outside expenditures. But I got to tell you, just in the accounting realm, boy, there's a lot of back and forth. And I mean, I'm saying, holy cow, are you kidding me? And I mean that in a sincere, upfront way. I just, and if you say, well, doesn't that happen everywhere? And I'm going to tell you, nope, it doesn't. And this is this is like having to unravel some knotted ball. And the problem is, I can't unravel it quick enough because it needs to be done. So I just say, wow. That's where we're at.
Priscilla?
I'm not understanding the titles at the top. You've got
Okay.
23 adopted budget, 24
Yes.
proposed, and then you got 2020 increase and decrease.
Yep. Okay. So the 24,
It's not here yet.
it's not here yet, but we're developing databases, people's databases, and 72% of your costs are with people, salaries and benefits. Not a big mystery. So we're developing these databases so that when our superintendent finishes with a negotiated contract, it will automatically roll forward if we know who we have for employees. And you've got, geez, I don't know, 300 employees? I don't know how many, Andy, do you have any guess? Anyways, you got a lot. You got a lot, but we've got to know who the heck we have. And that's another piece of this ugly pie. And as this database starts to become live, and it is all connected now, so that this data, this 2,910,000, that's picking up live bodies of people we know we have. The thing that's hasn't, I have not switched over the negotiated contract for next year as yet, because I want to first see, and that's a good comparison. I mean, you can see where you're at from this year, this 2,864,792 compared to the 2,910. It tells you close with the number of people you've got in that database that's picking up salaries and benefits. But we need, I mean, this isn't a 98% close. I mean, this is 100% accurate data that has to be in there. So the 24, the salary and benefits will become live and be put into each function. So that, and I just say this, media center, if you look at under the 23, the middle column, you have 111,000. Now, that's what was budgeted and pulled in, easy to put in. What comes on the data, live data, is 106,921. And so that's pulling out live people. Whether you had a change of one person, could be, but that's why it's picking up live data right now. All of the non-personnel piece, I've just parroted from last year, but we'll sit down and talk as we go forward. So this is, for me, the budgeting piece is the critical component in your whole financial aspect. Because once you've got this down and the information is live, you'll know where you are. You won't guess. You'll say, right there, that's where I am. So, hey.
Well, that 14-foot hole that you referred to is called e-finance. And I believe that it was supposed to align us with the 22 or 32-digit federal chart of accounts. It didn't work. This was a pilot district. We did the beta testing on behalf of the Agency of Education. Took them a few years to understand it was a total and complete disaster. And I'm sorry that you left to pick up the pieces from a colossal blunder from Montpelier that was based on low bidder. Cheap is not always a good value. That's a pretty good example.
It isn't.
I have one comment that I want to make about funds that flow back toward the high school, and that is when you're talking about personnel, you probably know this, and forgive me for saying this, but we have teachers who teach in multiple districts. Those teachers, I believe, are in the SU payroll, and then those costs are reported back out to the districts. And I'm guessing maybe that's part of what you're struggling with here.
We're breaking in the database for live people. If somebody's working 0.2% over at one school and the rest, we're splitting those up so that, as I say, in the end, this is 100% accuracy. So it will, whatever cell is being pulled, it'll pull it to the right place. And I just want to tell you, in the big scheme of things, and I'm not sure, I mean, I think we're probably 15 million in federal projects, 23 million in general fund monies. That's small. I mean, holy cow, are you kidding me? That's small in relation to what the size. You've got Keene, that's probably $100 million operation. Hartford, which is $42 million operation. So it's not that this isn't, I mean, it's not so big that we can't control it. We can and should, and It's just getting that ball unraveled fast enough to get there. Wow.
Andy, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Molly. And I just wanted, and Jim can correct me here if I'm way off base, but my understanding, kind of like what Priscilla was saying, or the question she was asking and kind of answering that a little bit, with what Jim has been putting together and the conversations I've been having, by having all of this in there, we will always be able to fairly accurately predict where our next year's budget is going to kind of start coming out, because our payrolls are consistent. I mean, those don't change. And so, but, and also with what David was saying, Jim and his team have been working to do that, dividing people out in those 0.2s and 0.3s. But I don't know if for the last couple of years, that's always been the practice. And so it's created kind of a bigger problem, because I do recall back when Edie was there, that's how my budget was broken out. I remember the first time I looked at it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I mean, I got a 0.6 of a person and a point this and a point, but it was all very, once I figured out what she was doing and how she had it coded, I could see where everyone was pulling from each different line. And I think that we got away from that practice. E-finance didn't help us. And so, like Jim says, it's unraveling that ball of twine. So I do appreciate what he and his team have been doing. And he's been keeping me up to date where they are, so that we have some, we're getting closer. It's just, I think all of us, including Jim, would like to be moving at light speed here, but to do it right, we got to make sure it's accurate. So,
June.
Jim, hi. I am told that the town of Westminster overpaid the district, and I was wondering what column the reimbursement to them comes out of on this.
This is just the high school piece.
Oh, okay.
And what happens is the state of Vermont, they control all of the property taxes in the state. So as they true up adjustments in the property tax rates, they will then crank out, it's a budget sheet. And I want to say there were two pieces, and I think we sent the check off already. But I think it was like 58,000. I may be
Okay,
wrong on
all right.
that, but
Yeah, I was just at the last select board meeting, and we're trying to close out our
Yes.
fiscal
We've
fiscal
sent-
year also. So I was just wondering if it fell in here somewhere.
no. But Westminster will get, similar flow sheets for the expense. And I just, again, I will say, I'm new, but not new to finance. And I will say there's one other sheet, the object sheet, the function sheet, and then there's the revenue sheet, which I don't know if you've ever had one, but I guess not, because I've never seen one.
We used to.
But you need a revenue sheet to go along with that, because you should be able to get a property tax projection with your budget. And I mean, holy cow, maybe 15 foot down.
It's been missing in action for a couple of years.
And I try to work on it in my spare time, but wow.
Well, wait till you get out of that 15-foot hole, and then you can work on that.
Mm.
Getting us back.
Come on, Jason, your hand's been up for a
Still
while.
hasn't answered mine.
Thank you. I believe I heard Jim say that we had over 300 employees at the high school. Is that correct?
District-wide.
District-wide. So we have currently 314 students, just so you're aware. And I think that these are really good topics that we ought to be discussing a lot. And just the importance of this is huge. And thank you. I forget what I was going to say.
Priscilla, yep.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but part of my question was the fact that 2020, why are we not comparing 2021 to 2022 rather than
Well,
2020?
You know, yes, I mean, you could compare it, to all three. I mean, it's just the real estate. I mean, I could put a wider page, and I hope to have a 14 by 18 sheet eventually, which would give me another column. Right now, for me to pull that off from this e-finance system would just take a lot more time.
They're using 2020.
Well, the 23 I have, I know for certain because you just passed the 23. So that was my May project, is to pull all that data and push it into where it has to go to recode it. That was May. And the comparative, because you always want to know where you are against budget. But again, I hope that I can show you that that's not as, it's not the type of information. Again, you'll want to spend a lot of time where you want to spend time. But for me, the three comparatives are where you've been for this year, this current year, where you're going next year, and then being able to project in the future. Because you also, I mean, most taxpayers want to control their property tax dollars. Now, they care about education dearly, but you know what? We all have our limits as to how much. And so these three columns, they really direct a little bit of what you want to have for a system. And I will say this, Priscilla, I spent 5 years on a school board. The information that I got, this wasn't my full-time job. And I mean, I had 1.5 inches of paper that I couldn't sort through. And I mean, listen, if I spent 2 hours that every night, I don't think that I could get results of where I wanted. This was developed so that you who are not in finance every day can easily go through and say, hey, I got you. I know where you're at. That's what I want you to end up with. So that you're not guessing. And to be honest with you, my hope is that you're going to spend a heck of a lot less time on finance and more on education. That's where you want to be. Reach into the wire, right?
Thank you, Jim. Anybody have any more questions on financing or for Jim? Jim, it's my understanding that you have quite a ride home, so thank you very much.
Hey, thank you so much.
Principals report. Have you got that, Andy?
Yeah, let me just pull it up here. I apologize. I thought I had it open already. This is John's report. The HVAC update. He met with Mike Sullivan on 6/20 to discuss the new draft of the work needed. He was very clear the work needed as per the report. The hope would be to design and put out to bid the work specific in the next few months, and then have a recommendation for our board to vote on the contractors. This amount would then be pushed up to the ESSER and hopefully approved. He would be able to begin to work on parts that could be done while this building is populated and look to finish work at the end of summer 23. I asked Mike about the needs to test for PCP, and his reply echoed what our state said, to have the HVAC work completed, as it only will help to lower the results of the testing of the PCPs. I will forward the updated report when I get it. If I may just add in there, we did have a meeting with Vermont Efficiency. They had grant monies that we had applied for with around HVAC. We didn't make their first cut, but after they finished their first rounds, we were considered for the second round. We had a meeting with that person, I think the week of graduation. It sounded like we might possibly get approved. We're still just waiting for that approval, that a portion of the total project might, as I say, be covered under this other grant money. And so the frustration that I think John and every principal and every person hears when I talk about ESSER funds, we were told to pump the brakes and not move forward with project approval for the HVAC system at the high school, because if we had project approval, or if we were applying for project approval, we would not be able to access the Vermont Energy Efficiency Funds. So, we're waiting. They said that we should hear something in early July. So I'm going to. I've got an email loaded up to go out to the person in charge of that grant to see, because if we can get some funds, they wouldn't take care of all. They don't have enough funds, obviously, to do all of our work, and there were other buildings that were considered, even within our SU, but and I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize, but like their part of the grant might cover the work that needs to be done in A wing, let's say, and so therefore we can parse that out of this whole proposal, and Vermont Efficiency can pay for the A wing, and then ESSER funds can pay for the rest of the wings. So just to kind of let the board know where that lies. Graduation went very well for the class of 2022. Both Molly, you and I had an opportunity. I know Jason was there as well. It was a great event. It was a little windy, but Ms. Streeter, you were there too, I believe. So it was a little windy, but it was great to see the graduates. The students behaved well and enjoyed their project grad through the parade on Sunday. The parade through town after the event was spectacular, with most of the town coming out to celebrate our students. The U.S. News and World Reports, and John has it linked here, had our school ranked at 16th from the 2021 school year performance. There are many indicators, but the two most important ones are graduation rate and AP scores, and that's the percentage of students taking AP classes. It is his perception that the school year 2022 will show improvements in these two areas. And then he's also attached 5-year data on hazing, harassment, and bullying reports. And I can, as I said, I can take questions on those and try and answer them. But I don't want to speak for the high school or for John, not knowing exactly all about that data. So.
Go ahead.
Andy, I don't have my computer, but did you get a answer from John within the last couple of hours on whether or not these were confirmed cases after the investigation?
Yeah, you know what? He actually sent it right back to me. He didn't reply to all, unfortunately, because he's traveling. He said these are all reported cases that have been investigated and results and consequences applied, and they've been fully dealt with. So what I interpret from that is when a student comes forward, what you have to do is you have to look at the matter, and you have to make a decision. Is it harassment, or is it hazing, or is it bullying? And a lot of times Vermont has very strict about harassment needs to fit into one of 9 protected categories. So a lot of times we use the word harassment a little loose, and we say this person's harassing me, and when you look into it, it doesn't fit into one of these 9 protected categories, which I should be able to go off the top of my head, but race, religion, creed, sex, sexual orientation, and disability, and I'm now forgetting 3 of them, so I apologize. So it has to fit into those 9 protected categories to be considered harassment. So when a complaint comes in, you look at it, is it there? Then for bullying, bullying has very specific. So it has to be student on student, and then it has to be a one-time event that is egregious, or it has to be repeated over time. So you have to look into that and see if it's repeated over time. And then hazing has to do around the initiation piece. And so that's what administration has to look at when they begin. And so not everything falls into those categories. And so then therefore just your student code of conduct takes over. So, so what I'm interpreting from John's remarks is that those are the ones that were reported, found to be factual, and looking into having met those criteria, those different criteria, and then therefore were addressed. So, but I can double check with that. Is that all reported cases, or is that just confirmed cases?
Go ahead, June.
So on this first graph, am I correct in saying that in 2021 and 2022, we only had 1 confirmed case of harassment that was found to be, after the investigation, that it was found to be bullying and harassing?
So which graph are you looking at?
Spiky
Ricky, do I
one?
have permission to share my screen? I do. Okay, can you all see that? These are which ones are you talking about here, June,
one.
just so I can pull up the right one?
That one right now, yes.
Okay. So in this graph, what this is showing is in 2017, 18, there were 2 harassment cases that dealt with race. And then in 2018, 2019, there would have been none. And then 1 in 2019, 2020, 2 in 2021, and 1 this past year. And so, as I said, those, my interpretation of that, and so please, if I could have just a little bit of, because John and I have not had the chance to have the conversation around these. My interpretation is these are reported and confirmed cases.
Okay.
So I guess I'm not sure what the next 2 graphs or 3 graphs are showing us then if we've only had one.
This
We've only had
graph
one.
here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this graph here is looking at 8 of the protected categories. I'm trying to see which one is missing. And they might be combining 2 of the sex ones together, because sometimes that happens. So you're looking at, in the last 5 years, no, because he's added bullying. So there's been almost 12% of the confirmed cases they have on harassment, hazing, and bullying have been, 12% of them have been for bullying. Almost 9% have been around a disability. And you can see that 20.6 have been around a race. So that's looking, I believe, again, and I'll have to double check with John, is if you were to look at all of these and put them into a pie chart, so all of these cases, that's how they break out of how they fit into those different categories. So this is just looking at that same graph over linear as opposed to a pie chart.
Out of the 7 total confirmed bullying and harassment cases we've had since 2017, 20% were race. Because I'm thinking that this doesn't look.
In 5 years, it was only 34. Not that any is good, but
But this doesn't look bad to me if we've only had, unless I'm reading it wrong.
So again, I think what Ms. Carlson was mentioning, and just my tenure as a building administrator, oftentimes things don't always they don't always go up to the level of an HHB is the acronym we use, or hazing, harassment, or bullying. So they don't end up on a report. But there can be a culture in a building that exists, that you work to try and address that culture that students might use. And a lot of times students might think that something, and I think that was in the letter from the committee, students often, the intent is to be joking in a familiar way, but in hazing, harassment, and bullying, it falls on the perception of the individual. And so if that individual perceives that it is that they are being harassed in a way or bullied, then that's when it raises to this level. And so it's one of the things as a building administrator you have to tease out. So there might have only been, in the last 5 years, 34 confirmed cases. And as I think I heard Molly say, one is probably too many, kind of thing. There might be additionals that are out there. So. And then this chart, I think it's just looking at that data another way, just the trends of, you can see that in 2018, 2019, there was quite a few decreases, but you had an increase of confirmed sexual harassment, but a decrease in what appears to be disability, race, and religion. So I mean, I can speak anecdotally from when I was a building administrator and I'd come on new at a building. If you looked at 5-year trend as an administrative staff, and we did this, we went back and we looked at our HHB when we all kind of started, because we were all fairly new to that building. Our HHB was very high our first year, and because the way we looked at and interpreted what was harassment and bullying was we had a very low tolerance, and so therefore we were holding kids highly accountable. And as we did more education over years, you saw that our numbers decreased dramatically over 5 years, and it was because the education we did with kids and get them to understand that when you make a comment or you put a comment on Facebook, that can be considered harassment or that can be considered bullying. And so it takes a lot of time to really work with students to get them to understand that and to curb that. It doesn't mean that it goes away. It just means you're working to reduce that. So, but June, you've got some great questions, and I'm writing those down, and we'll take those back to John to get you some concrete answers.
Okay, thank you, because I guess I'm still confused, because if
Yep.
the number along the side is the number of instances, it looks like we've only had,
That's right.
it looks like we've had 2,
0.
1, 4, 7, 8 in the confirmed investigated ones in the last 5 years.
Right.
If I'm reading,
and that's why I'm
right.
saying that's why I'm saying I just don't know, and I don't want to speculate. So
Okay, thank you.
I think Jason has his hand up, Molly.
Go ahead, Jason.
Couple quick questions for Andy. Andy, would you generalize these incidents as numerous or regular of the 5-year investigation that John did?
Jason, I'm struggling to answer that a little bit because I don't know how administration over the last 5 years has looked to address that. As the director, it wasn't something that was in my purview. You know, in a comparison, if I were to look at, if I'm understanding, maybe I'm asking a clarifying question. Are you asking me, are those numbers somewhat consistent with a building like of our size type of thing? Is that what you're maybe asking?
No, I'm asking your opinion as the chief boss. Do you think that these are numerous, or this happens on a regular basis?
I think that bullying and harassment goes underreported often.
Thank you. And then just want to get off of this topic. And the World News Report 2021, we were ranked 15th. This year we're ranked 16th. 2021, we had 332 students. This year, 314. Last year, our student to teacher ratio was 9-1. This year was 11-1. So congratulations. Our graduation rate, however, last year was 89%, and this year was 84%. And I was fully prepared to discuss this at length, that we did not improve, and I've been really wanting to improve. But however, when you look around the state of Vermont, and I'm not trying to point fingers, because when you do point a finger, 3 are pointing right back at you. But our school really, I think, has done a really good job. You know, when you look around other schools and everything else that's going around in the news and front page of the paper. So I applaud Mr. Broadley for that. And I appreciate all his hard work. And I appreciate your hard work, and also the fact that I saw you at every graduation this year. So thank you for doing it. That was admirable.
Thank you, Jason. I have to admit, I was unable to make 2 of them, which was Saxon's River. I made Saxon's River, so Central and Grafton, just because they were at the exact same time. But I do appreciate you noting that.
So I might be wrong on my numbers, Jason, but I specifically asked our principal when I was signing the diplomas what it looked like. How did it look? You know, how was our graduation rate? And he told me we had 74 kids and 72 of them graduated. So that, to me, is 97%. But
Yeah, I'm just going by what this thing reports. I don't even know how accurate that is, but
because I was pretty
kind of the only
impressed.
information we have sometimes.
Yeah, and he
Yeah,
said
absolutely.
he felt confident that by the end of the summer that these other 2 students would probably get through it. So that to me sounded pretty good.
Yeah, that is impressive.
Well, I think that disparity in graduation rate is caused by what's known as 4-year cohort. Number of kids who start as freshmen, the number of kids who graduate as seniors.
June?
Yeah, Molly, I was going to echo just what David said. Is
he done?
Yep, I think so. He stopped.
I'm just confused about ranked 16th out of the state of Vermont, ranked 16th out of what? 16 out of Vermont?
So it's 16 out of Vermont.
How many schools are there in Vermont?
I'm sorry?
How many schools are there, high schools are there in Vermont?
I'll get you the exact number. 50 sits in my head, but I could be wrong.
Oh, that's good, 50-ish.
More like 32.
The other thing is just what David was saying is and down in Massachusetts, we used to have this when I worked down in Massachusetts. You got your 4-year cohort, then you got your 5-year cohort, then you got your 6-year cohort. And so, you know, you can play with those numbers any way you want to, but David is correct. It looks at the number of kids that were enrolled as freshmen, and then how many of them in 4 years graduated. And so you're also looking at past data. You're not looking at the present data. So, so just to keep that in, so people keep that in mind, it's not, next year's US News report will reflect this year's graduation class.
Some schools could make out really good with that. If we lose them and they move to somewhere else and their 4-year is lower, then, yeah.
Okay, anything else on the principal's report? Is everybody good?
129 schools in general.
So let's move on. So we have athletic trainer notification. Is that just to tell us that we have one?
Yeah, John does have has made an offer to a candidate who's a certified athletic trainer in the state of Vermont. And I just don't have that person's name in front of me. But we just wanted to let you guys know that he has found someone, and we're looking forward to them starting.
Is that a full-time position?
I'm not 100% sure of the hours, so I apologize that I'm not prepared to answer that, because I think John was going to answer some of these questions, so I'm digging for him real fast here.
All right, committees. Anybody reporting on the WNSU meeting? I was not at the last meeting, so.
I wasn't there.
All right, we'll get it next time. Negotiations, who's reporting on that? Mrs. Streeter.
The negotiations are going well. We've been working hard. We had a joint meeting last week, and we had a meeting with just the board for several hours last week, and we're going to have a marathon session this Wednesday starting at 10, hoping to come up to a signed agreement. Other than that, things are going well.
June, where'd you get the time? I haven't heard that yet.
That was discussed at our Wednesday joint meeting.
And on Friday again.
And
too.
Friday, yes, and
Confirmed.
Friday.
After I left. Okay.
Okay, anybody have any questions for June? Not much we can ask, but, Esser, who's reporting on Esser?
Can we have Andy do that?
We haven't had an opportunity, just with the schedules and whatnot, how they've kind of fallen to meet. But just so the high school board is aware, we've gotten back almost all of the conceptual approvals for things like the auditorium, the roof. I'm trying to think off, and I apologize. But many of the projects that we were looking to do at the high school have met concept approval. And so I'm working with Jim DeBell right now to then move through the second step, and that's to work towards project approval. But some of it also is getting back with the committee, because we've gotten many of our concepts, our constructions approved. And so we have to go back and look and make sure that we're not spending all of our dollars, that we're being equitable in looking at those and where the needs are. And so that'll be the next task of that committee, is to look at all those different proposals and see how we're spending those dollars.
Thank you. Building and Grounds Committee, we haven't met in a long time. That's one of Jason's questions, is following up on the parking lot, and we are going to have a meeting on August 22nd at 5:30. It'll be before the August meeting, the school board meeting. We talked about doing it in July, but it felt like there was a lot of people not around, so hopefully we can, get some things started so that we vote on it during, for next year, so we get a plan, because I do think it's something that's important to work on. I don't think Rockingham ever voted on it, did they?
No,
Yeah. So that's what we're heading towards, is August 22nd
here.
here, yes. Yeah. So the next thing we have is unfinished old business for discussion and action. Review and approve policies. Priscilla?
Yes, these policies were all posted on May 18th. So they are out there. We didn't approve them. We talked about them last time, that they would be on the next agenda for approval, and that was in our minutes that we just approved tonight too. That was confirming that. So basically, C10 is prevention of harassment, harassing, and bullying of students. C10P was the procedures that go along with that policy. C11 is your student freedom of expression in school-sponsored media. That's just media. It doesn't have to do with other freedoms of expression. C12 is prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. C14 is a policy on Section 504 and ADA grievance for protocol for students and staff. All of those C10, 11, 12, and 14 are required policies and must be in our policy manual as required by the state and the federal government. They're based on their regulations, and so the wording in there is basically based on those things. We also warned F34, the flags on school property policy. I would move that we adopt those policies, C10, 10P, C11, C12, C14, and F34.
I second.
There is a motion made to approve the policies listed on your agenda. Is there any questions or comments before we vote? Okay. Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
Deb?
Aye.
Priscilla?
Yes.
June?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
David?
Yes.
Brenda?
Yes.
Policies are approved.
I have one question for Priscilla,
Mhm.
if I could. Does this make us almost caught up on policies?
I can tell you how far off we are. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, between 8 and 10 more that we need to.
Okay.
I was trying to look for a date to be able to have a policy committee meeting in July, possibly July 15th, if we don't have any other one. Then of course, there are recommended policies and optional policies to add to those, but
Thank
that
you.
would at least get us updated on those. They're supposed to be updated every 3 to outside limit 5 years, and we're way out of compliance, so we're really getting there. Really proud of the committee. We're really impressive, their work on that and their willingness to meet.
Good, thank you. So we adjusted the agenda for 8A for Mr. Broadley and Mr. Haas to help us with a punch list to make sure that we were getting things completed, or they were getting things completed. I think that, you know, as I listened to how this meeting went tonight, and probably, you know, people aired some things just because it needed to be aired, and how do you see that happening, Andy? I mean, we have an agenda every week and we have our minutes, and we follow through on those minutes before we do the next agenda?
Yeah, I think that, I'm sorry, Molly, go ahead.
No, I'm waiting for you.
I guess, you know, on the agenda, there is unfinished business, and those things that the board is asking, if there's certain items that they're asking for action on, that those can be put on there. If they're requesting, if a request was made, similar to like tonight with explanations of US news and world and whatnot. I guess that those are things that we can continue to list under like unfinished business, or like the harassment data that June was asking about, like just confirming or clarifying those things. They can sit under unfinished business and we can tick them off as we go through them. I think the other piece is, noting that if certain items, if they're requests just for information, then that request for information could be sent to administration and we can include those in reports as well.
A lot of times when I get agenda items from people, it's not listed separately on the agenda because it's something like Mr. Broadley's gonna take care of that in his report. So I don't break it down, because when I meet with John before we do every agenda, and I show him the list of, this is what I got from the board members that they're asking about, and a lot of times he says I'm gonna get that in my report, so I don't list it because I've given it to our principal and it was really a question for him. And so that's how I've kind of been reacting to that, and it feels tonight like maybe it wasn't a good enough reaction. But, I don't have Jason's list in front of me, but for the most part, I thought I had like the list he had this week on the agenda through reports and things. And sometimes, I call you, Andy, because I don't even know where to put something because it's hard to put that in an agenda, So, yeah, we'll work on that. We'll work on it being in the unfinished business. Does anybody else have any comments to that or something that they're looking for? Okay. All right, so resignations and appointments, if any. I had a list sent to me. Did everybody get the list where who was being hired and who they were replacing?
No,
I
I
didn't.
didn't.
Okay, so Andy, correct me, but I think I have this right. This list got sent to my email. It said Megan Ellis, math, replacing Lori Walters. Robert Oakes, math, replacing Jenny McKay. Jennifer Garrettson, chorus, 2/3, replacing Richard Smith. Matthew Peister, science, and it was a science opening. Rochelle Boré, art, replacing Anna Majeski. So that was the list that, must be John sent it to me, I'm sorry, I just printed it off so it looked like I needed it.
We already voted on.
I
Yeah, a
thought we
lot of
did
those are
vote.
those, yeah.
Except for the
So-
art one. I don't
So I
remember.
have, I think I can clarify a little bit. It's actually, the list is a little smaller that we're looking to get here. I'm just trying to get some information so I can give you. So, so the first one is Rochelle Borette, who would be the art teacher. And we would be looking at, and I'm trying to pull that up as I'm trying to talk and do two things at once, and I apologize. I shouldn't have started with her because I didn't have her. But she comes with a lot of experience in the public or the private sector, just as an artist, but also oh, there it is. Okay, pardon me. So I got it here. So she would be coming in at a master's plus step 14. As I said, she's worked as an art teacher down in Texas and recently relocated up here. She's also worked as a program director in the Chicago area and also as an art teacher in Illinois. John felt very comfortable. I wasn't part of that committee, but felt that she was very qualified and would add a lot to our students.
Question, Molly,
Yes.
Michelle Foray. Is she certified in Vermont, Andy?
I believe I think we had that conversation back and forth. I think that she is working towards her certification. She's spoken with the state. We may need to ask for a provisional at the beginning of the school year.
Well, what I will say is that this candidate appears, based on your testimony, to be well qualified for this position. I was an eye opener when I saw masters plus 14, so I was curious what the resume looked like. But I think that when we hire teachers, it's also useful to know what their certification status is. Sounds to me like you won't have trouble coming up with a provisional on this proposed hire, which I will support. But I just think when we hire teachers, we should know what we're hiring.
Great point, David. This year has been really challenging, and what I've really asked principals to do is, we've got a lot of teachers who are working towards their certification. The state knows it. I mean, it's been very difficult across Vermont to hire teachers. Rochelle, I will say she has a Bachelor of Art in art, and then she went through the Corpus Christi State University Teacher Certification Program, and then she has a Master's of Science and Education from Northwestern University. She taught for 4 years down in Texas, worked for 6 years, as I said, as a program director, and worked an additional 7 years in schools in both Texas and in Illinois. So
Sounds like a great candidate.
Priscilla?
Andy, with the 6 years in program director, though, is that what we should be giving credit for? Because otherwise it's only 11.
yeah, I gave her partial credit for that, to be honest with you. In the conversations with John, and the candidacy, and her strength, but in talking with John, the work that she was doing during that time was, working with folks and doing things that were, that at times we might provide as, when people work in the private sector, we will count a half a year, or a year, we'll only give them a half a year's credit, so.
So it was teaching, though, but because the program director sounds more like administrative.
That is my understanding, that there was an administrative piece to it, but it was also working in schools, in developing programs in school and working with students in those schools, and providing classes and whatnot for the community.
Thank you.
The other, do you want to do one on each? Molly, how would you like to handle?
Let's get this one done and then we'll go to the next one.
Okay.
So can I have a motion to accept Rochelle Boré as the art teacher?
I'll make that motion to
Okay.
accept Rochelle Boré as the art teacher.
There's a motion on the table,
At step.
yep,
At
to
step
accept
14.
Rochelle
Masters.
Boré, art teacher at a master's step 14. Are we ready to vote? Deb Wright,
Aye, Deb Wright.
Jason,
Yes.
Priscilla,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Tanya,
Yes.
David,
Yes.
Brenda.
Yes.
Rochelle is our art teacher. What's next?
All right, this one's a little confusing, so I'll try and parse it out. Katie Eamon has been teaching with us, and this current year she is on a year's leave of absence because of some childcare issues. She is requesting another year leave of absence. She was hoping to return. She signed her contract to come back, but the daycare situation continues to be a struggle for her, as we know for many of our parents in our community. But so she is requesting another year of leave of absence from the board. And the reason why I'm starting with her is because then the appointment to replace her is next, but I can't ask for an appointment until after we're able to move forward on her leave of absence.
Can I have a motion to accept Katie Iman's request for a 1-year leave of absence?
Would that be also just as long as she's not teaching elsewhere?
That is my understanding, is that she is not teaching, Priscilla.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to accept Katie Iman's year of leave of absence due to daycare deficiencies.
Anybody have any other questions?
I have a question. What does the collective bargaining agreement say about leaves of absence, Andy?
Without pay.
Let me pull that up, David. I don't have that in front of me, so give me 1 second, please.
Nor do I.
The motion should probably be without pay. So I would ask for a friendly amendment if that's okay. I think it provides no step increases as a result. Because we only grant step increases when pay is given.
My computer's running a little slow here, David, so I apologize. Now I should be able to find it. We put it in a table of contents, but for some reason, under Article 12, so there's the personal leave, bereavement leave, sick leave, jury leave, FMLA. Sorry, Article 3 is extended leaves. There's a maternity leave, parental leave, adoption, sabbatical.
How about the
It says
extended
for
leave,
any
Andy?
leave. Yeah, it's for other extended leaves. It says for leaves for any other reasons with or without pay may be granted at the sole discretion of the board.
I'm going to offer an amendment motion. And the amendment to the motion is that an unpaid leave of absence is granted, and that step increases not be allowed for the years of absence from the teaching staff.
David, I think that's in there for if it should be. It always was.
If it's in there, it's superfluous.
But
But if it's
you're
not in
adding-
there,
I appreciate your
the
amendment.
redundancy might prove to be useful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep, I agree.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to accept Katie Iman's year of leave with not being able to occur any steps while she's not working, but she hasn't worked this year or next year, right?
I would ask
Or
the
pay.
maker of the motion if she accepts it as a friendly amendment,
Oh, yes.
and then that's the motion.
And without pay.
And with it, yeah.
I apologize there. It got quiet for me on my end, so I realized I got disconnected, so.
Deb, are you still there? Jason Terry, we have a motion to accept Katie Iman's 1 year of absence with no steps and no pay.
Yeah,
Priscilla,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Tanya,
Yes.
David,
Yes,
Brenda.
Yes.
Katie's got another year with a little child.
All right, so the appointment is for Sarah Kovac to fill the English position that Katie is vacating. Sarah's been working with us as a interventionist funded through ESSER funds. And so, and she has been working, working with the English department and doing interventions with students. And Sarah would be coming in as a master's on step 5. She's currently on step 4.
Andy, her certification status?
Oh, that one I actually may not have. Let me see if I can pull it up. I don't have her actual resume with me. Let me see if I can pull it up. I hope I don't get disconnected. Give me 1 second and. So she is a level 1, grade 7 through 12 for English. It expires in 2024.
Thank you, Andy.
Yep.
Okay, can we get a motion?
Oh, wait, I have one question first.
Well, let's get a motion so we can talk
Okay.
about it.
Okay. I make the motion to accept Sarah Kovac as a long-term sub for Katie Iman's.
No,
No,
a 1 year
A
contract.
1 year
A
contract,
1 year contract.
not a sub.
Not 1 year non-continuing contract, probably.
Okay, you make it then.
Okay, I make the motion for Sarah Kovac to be provided a 1 year non-continuing contract. I don't know if non-continuing is the correct word, but it gives you the point of it. As an English teacher, while Katie is on leave, at a master's step 5.
It would just, if I could just offer, it would just be a 1 year contract.
Right,
Don't
1
need
year
not continuing.
non-continuing contract.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion to accept Sarah Kovac as a 1 year contract English teacher for Katie Iman's classes at a step what?
5,
Five.
master's plus
Masters.
5.
And June, you have your hand up.
Andy, will she be taking all aspects of Katie's job and starting the drama department up again so we can have some plays?
I cannot speak to that. That I can't answer, and I apologize, June, but I can get an answer and we can get an email out to the board so the board has that answer.
Okay, thank you.
And if she's not, what is our plan to get plays back? Because I think that is vitally important, as important as our sports programming and our other programs. The arts are an avenue for many of our kids to express themselves. So
Maybe we could get Katie back just to do that.
that may be a possibility that we could maybe look into, if she can come back and just run those performances. So.
Yeah, because that's a separate contract.
Yeah, and this area doesn't have that much to do, so we really look forward to those plays.
Can we ask Katie first, because she's excellent in that? category before we.
I bet Mr. Bradley's right on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, we have a motion on the floor to accept Sarah Kovac as a one-year English teacher. Jason, how do you vote?
Yes.
Deb, you back? Yep.
Yep, Deborah Wright, aye. Yeah, I got kicked out.
Well,
Yes.
June,
Yes.
Tanya,
Yes.
David,
Yes,
Brenda,
Yes.
motion passes. Welcome aboard, Sarah. We
Thank you very
are
much.
down to, director's comments. Oh, whoop, what?
Sorry. Can I?
I don't know, what do you got?
I should have
We're
brought
under
the-
resignations right
I
now. Is this a
know.
resignation or an appointment?
It should be, but it's not. I should have brought this up earlier and I apologize, but there was an email a while ago from John Broadley asking for a hiring committee to hire a full-time restorative practice person. And there was a little bit of back and forth, and I was wondering if he went ahead and formed that committee and we're advertising, or
Yeah,
If not-
so that's an SU position, because it's a grant funded position. And so I've asked all principals, just for clarification, I've also asked all principals to invite a board member to be a part of every committee. I think it's just important, for transparency. I don't know who was on that committee, but, I know the committee met. They brought a candidate forward to me. I'm in conversation with that candidate, and just have not been able to solidify anything. We were emailing earlier today, so.
thank you, sorry that I dropped the ball on that one.
No, I was going to mention it in my report, so thank you for holding me accountable to it.
Okay, director's comments. Jason Terry.
Nothing, Molly, thank you.
Deb Wright.
I think I said enough tonight. Thank you. I'm set.
Priscilla.
Yes, I was very impressed with the speakers at graduation and with their comments to the class and encouragement for their joining the community beyond graduation. I think they did a wonderful job. It was a beautiful night and no rain, and the parade was absolutely impressive as well. Just continue to remember to be kind to each other as they put out there as well. Thank you.
June.
I'm all set, thank you.
Tanya.
I'm all set.
David.
yeah, I want to state something here. I don't believe the chair's racist. I don't believe the chair is even latent racist. So if there's the perception that's my belief, it's not my belief. However, I do need to point out that the chair is the public face of this school board, and that I am hopeful that, as she does almost all the time, that the chair continues to represent this board to the public with the, what I would refer to as the prestige, which I believe that this board has earned over long years of service to this community. And I do thank you, Molly, for your work here. I certainly was a supporter of your candidacy as chair in early years, because if for no other reason, you were the first chair of the female gender at that point in time within the WNESU, and I think you have continued to serve this board with distinction. I took the opportunity to pick on you because it was politically useful in addressing some of the issues, such as the letter that we received from our Diversity and Equity Committee. And I admire you for the broad shoulders that you have in shouldering some of the burdens that are thrust upon you, whether you like them or not. Thanks.
Thank you. Brenda.
I'm pretty much all set, but I did find it concerning in the letter. I believe that
the committee has its place, but I wonder how it reports or how it, what it brings up, because we have a negotiating collective. We have contracts for teachers who speak into our kids' lives and educate and teach them. And the letter stated that they were really conscious of and committed to implementing certain things under the Vermont State and the DOE. And I'm just concerned, I'm proud of our status in education, or who's who in high school academics and whatnot. And I think we should continue to concentrate on that. And I don't know, I'm just kind of concerned about how we do our behavior and moral issues. I believe that the golden rule still applies. I treat you the way I want to be treated, and I think that works still.
I think there's a lot goes on in this whole community, and we've gotten hung up on a couple different things, but what I have found out, probably knew all my life, but you know, the more I get involved in high school, John and I meet pretty frequently, so I get to know a little bit more about what goes into the school. I've gotten to know some of the kids. You know, I used to think I knew the kids just because they were in school with my daughter, but now it's a different get to know the kids and see them out in the public and see them in functions. And I sent a representative for the company I work for here to a job fair, and he came into my office the next day and he says, "You're famous." I'm not famous, it's just a name that they've seen and know, but what alarms me a little bit in everything we've talked about tonight and a lot of other nights is that I feel sometimes like we focus on a small group of people that we want to make sure we're doing the best we can for them. But the truth of the matter is, Andy and I had a great conversation today about a lot of people in our community that need help, that are struggling in more ways than one. And to be able to reach every single one of them is pretty hard. And, you know, I think that a lot of us have a really good home life, and I'm very, you know, very proud of what I have and where my daughter is going to end up. But there are a lot of kids out there that need some help, and it's not even just we need to get them that free school lunch. It's so much on their plate that they don't even know how to deal with. They don't want to say anything because they don't want to have another light on top of them because, you know, maybe they're the kid that looks different walking down the hallway or something. But it's not about race or even harassment or bullying a lot of times, but it's about what they're not letting you know. And it's kind of scary, and it's something that, you know, we just graduated a bunch of really nice kids. They all look me right, you know, when I shook their hand, it's the proudest night of being on a school board, is standing up there and being able to just see all those kids and having them all be so proud and have their parents and their friends out hollering and the fire alarms going off because the Streeter kid graduated. But the truth of the matter is, you know, we gotta focus on every single one of them, not just the ones that are going to college, not just the ones that are doing whatever they're doing, but there's a whole bunch of kids in this society right here that they need attention. And I was struggling with that a little bit, and Andy helped me out a little bit today because, you know, what do? We can't wrap them all up and take them home, but we need to really pay attention to the whole community, because there's a lot of people out there that won't ask for help and won't say anything. And that's why I'm here. I don't have an agenda. I love kids, and I want to see every single one of them succeed. And there's a lot of kids out there that need some help. So That's all I got. July 25th is our next meeting. Thank you very much.
I didn't think I was gonna make it.
Yeah, it's still on.
Oh,